Hey, folks, we're back this week talking about what's on the roadmap. Now, roadmap is a guide. It's the thing that we use to figure out where we are, where we're going, and it gives us a good sense of where things are laid out. And so what we're going to be talking about today is not a physical roadmap, as I'm showing you in the illustration here, but the roadmap which consists of or comprises the plans that the Meteor team has for the next release of MeteorJS, Meteor 3.1, MeteorJS 3.1. So with that, I don't think we're going to have any live coding this week. Am I right, Kuster?
No, but I've prepared something not for today, but for the next day. So keep watching what's coming up on the channel.
Yeah. And so we've got that. We have some news, as we always do. And towards the end, there is a little bit of, I guess, a bonus, if you want, a resource that we can give you for those of you who are Vue users and who've been building with Vue, who want to get some understanding of how to make an upgrade from Vue 2 to Vue 3 with Meteor 3. We have some information that might just work for you. And with that, I want to just let you know that this is episode 63 of This Week in MeteorJS, a weekly newscast of the MeteorJS Dispatches podcast. My name is Alim Ghaffar, coming to you live from New York City. I think it's still live, right? And with me today is
Jan Küster, live from Germany. Hello.
And in a little bit, we have two guests with us, both with Meteor Software heritage, if you will. One is there now, one was there before. We'll bring them on very shortly. But as we usually do, we'll head straight for the news. And with that, let me get to it. I'm opening the news this week for a change.
Yes.
So it's, let's see what we've got here. And now I have to remember about moving to the, can we go to the next slide? Yep. So we're trying to be very visual this week. So we're going to see how this all works out. So a couple of weeks ago, we did an episode on election tech. And it turns out that there has been, next slide, some interaction, some participation in the forums about it. And there is user pmogollon who has shared their experience of building voting technology or voting tools with MeteorJS, which is great. And it's a company called propidata.com. I think the next slide shows them. And this is the platform that they have for building communities and being able to do things like vote and take polls and so on. And anyway, he wanted to share that they've done that. In addition to this, if we go on to the next slide, he's also added a bit more information about their experience building this, and they can actually support over 30,000 concurrent users with their implementation, and they have shared their scaling experiences with everyone in the community. So there is a forum post for that. And we realized later on, because that user also shared some additional data, that they were at Impact 2022, where they gave a talk on this. And we go to the next slide, we'll see it. And, oh, no, I'm sorry, go back one second. So it's in this slide. So I guess it's the bottom QR code will take you to the video that shows that where they have their presentation about how they are able to scale very large communities on MeteorJS applications. So, from that past episode from a couple of weeks ago, there has been some really interesting discussion. A couple of users have shared the fact that they have built voting style technologies or applications on MeteorJS. I guess partly to make use of the real-time features of Meteor. And anyway, I thought I'd share that with you guys. If you're interested in taking a look and seeing, just go back into the episode. We've put not only the links there, but QR codes to those links to make it a lot easier for you to be able to get to. So with that, I am going to move on. And Kuster, what should people do next?
People should, of course, hit the like button to let us know if you liked the episode and if you want to see more of that content. And of course, tell YouTube that this is good content that others should also watch. And I mean, that is, let me give you the latest news for this week. So first of all, State of JS 2024 is open. And I mean, we cover this every time that comes up because this is so important for every one of us. It's not simply just a questionnaire or survey, but it's also a chance for you to shape the JS ecosystem, because it became such an impactful survey that this is referred by so many articles right now, even professional publications refer to it, because it has such a huge sample size and can already be seen as somewhat representative. And I took my chance, for example, to express my very strong opinion on all these server-side rendering trends, tendencies out there. Yeah, so especially referring to React here, but that's my personal thing. Of course, SSR has its place, and of course, has its applications. I just have a personal opinion on that being pushed into the front end, but that's okay. Besides that, take your survey, because you will be surprised. There are still new things bubbling up during the survey you might have not tried out yet, and then you can put them to your reading list, learn something new, and become a better developer. Coming from there, I already talked about React. There's another thing that the React suspense API had some kind of issues there. And if you have upgraded, if you were one of these early adopters, then you may have realized that already. Things are resolved now, and you should definitely check out the latest React 9. I don't know if I haven't checked if the release is already a full 19 release or if it's just a beta release, so you should check that out. We linked not only the blog post, but there's also a GitHub issue on this pre-warning thing. But yeah, as you can see here, it's an RC day release, so you can safely try that out and experiment with it and see if you have now these warning issues not anymore. Another thing that is not related to the overall ecosystem, but very Meteor specific, we already talked about a Meteor application. Now we have another Meteor application we quickly want to cover, and that is the Tuumik Team Management for Hybrid Work, focusing on law firms, if I get that correctly, is now open source, but it's not open source in terms of free license, but it's at least openly available on GitHub to read the source code. And even if it's not free, it's still interesting to see how this application is structured. And of course, that there is another Meteor application in that area to put on the list. So Alim, you should also put it on your reading list, the list you're always publishing.
Yes, the Flipboard. I put it on the Flipboard already. So if anybody goes to that flipboard.com magazine, you'll find it there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's mostly about time tracking, availability tracking for law firms, if I get that correct. And that's another niche product. And I personally always like niche products, very specialized in certain market niches, because usually when you're building these niche products, you are usually very successful unless you mess up things very much. But this is cool. So everybody check out and leave a like on the GitHub repo as well, by the way, because we should all support each other with what we're providing. And then, of course, the biggest news of the week is that you should subscribe to this channel if you haven't heard of it. Yeah. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, then Support us by doing it. You will also get notified when the next interesting understanding Meteor tutorials are coming up. There is some stuff in the pipeline, and I hope this will be also useful for you all. And we're closely to 350 users, subscribers, of course. And now let's get to the real update of the week. Oh,
hang on a second. I think we missed something. So if we go back, I think, or did you cover it and I just missed it? The Meteor 3.1.
That's that's what I wanted to jump in right now.
Yeah, I don't think there's
It somehow got removed. I wanted to cover it after the subscription. So
yes.
Let me quickly put up the article on that. And in the meantime, Alim, you can briefly talk about what it's about.
Okay, so there is a blog post for. Now let me see if I can.
I already have it.
I'll pop it up. Hang on one second, and I will share that also. Oh, you're already doing that. Beautiful. Okay, great. So, so this is related to what we're going to be talking about today on Meteor 3.1, MeteorJS 3.1, and this is an article that Leonardo, who I'm going to give you a little hint, is actually one of our guests today, is going to be chatting a little bit about and covering. So, Jan, I don't know if you want to talk very much about it. Let me go through the list of things that are covered here. It covers Node.js 22, MongoDB driver version 6, Express 5, the roles package, the elimination of underscore dependency, giving native MongoDB support for Apple Silicon, so you don't have to rely on Rosetta anymore, faster rebuilds, faster hot module reloads, improved Cordova compatibility. Although I do want to talk about that a little bit. Are we sticking with Cordova there? Significant real-time code refactoring, laying the groundwork for future performance optimizations, enhanced TypeScript integration in the MongoDB, in the Mongo package, and much, much more. So this is an article you should read. I'm going to say you must read. Apologies for not having a slide set up for that with the link. We will get that to you anyway in the description. There will be a link there. But for now, this is something I think will give you a deeper appreciation for the discussion that is coming. When you get a chance to read it, you'll understand, I think, a little more the thinking behind what's going on with the team, or specifically what's going on with Leonardo and how he sees this going forward. So, having said that, let's move on and let's talk a little bit about the roadmap. So the roadmap was mentioned in a post that was posted to the forums, I'm using the same word again, in late August. Now, there's been talk about the roadmap for 3.1 for a bit, but Leonardo really organized everything, put together a forum thread, and then a link to the docs, which would be the next slide, where the actual, list of, and Jan, you could go to the next slide. And so the roadmap is written in a docs, in the Meteor docs, and you can go there to see the high-level items that are discussed, as well as some elements that they are considering. And so we're gonna talk a little bit to Leonardo about how to navigate these documents. And there's a third document which sort of gives you an insight into, and Jan, could you go to the next document?
Yep.
Yeah, which goes into the feature requests that you could put in, and those are aggregated and worked on, and I guess fully discussed, if you will, in GitHub. So those are the three places that you would look for it. The forums will give you the links to where you need to go. The Meteor docs has the actual expression of what's in there, and then the GitHub has the features that people are asking about or talking about, discussing. So if there's something that's not on the list and you feel that should be given attention, one of the places you would go is to the GitHub, and you would post something there in order to make sure that it was considered in some ways. So let's just step back for a second and just kind of highlight what has happened. So when we went from the 2 series to the 3 series, there were 2 main goals. One, which was to get back to Node.js parity. We were on Node 14 for a while, and Node 14 was aging rapidly, and we weren't able to move off it because there was no fiber support beyond Node 14. Just there was, when I say that, it means that in the Node core itself, it wasn't going to be able to support or make fibers work. And so there was a big effort. I think it was almost a 2-year effort to move the entire platform off fibers into an async await reactive paradigm. And now that we've gotten there, and now most of you, if you have legacy applications that you were keeping up to date with Meteor, then you would have started moving your applications over, and you haven't done that, and you haven't even started, and I would suspect that some of you, that is the case. Don't worry, we're still going to bring this up again and again, even though we're now talking about what's going to be next. And I'm very interested in this for the future of Meteor and what this means for Meteor to be a competitive platform with other JavaScript platforms out there. So let's talk about what we're seeing on this roadmap. So if you could go to the next slide. All right. We have a sponsored section. I keep on forgetting this. So yeah. Before we get to talking about what are the high-level bullet points of that's on the roadmap, and then bringing our friends in, let's just get this segment done. And so here we're going to play. We are so professional. We're going to play this thing. Meteor Software has given a Galaxy offer, a Galaxy discount offer with Meteor with our podcast. And there is a code. Galaxy is the platform that is purpose-built for running Meteor applications. And there is this code. I believe it's dispatches-60.
Yes.
We have a link to the landing page. You go to the landing page, and you go there, and then you fill out all your information, and you put in dispatches-60, and you will get a $60 credit for running your applications on Galaxy if you have not already used it. It's a one-time use. It's a one-time offer. And if you have not had a chance to use it, I would say go ahead and take advantage of it. I think they've been doing a lot of great work with Galaxy. And maybe we'll have a discussion one day with Fred, or I think Danielson has left, right? So it'll be whoever else is responsible for that platform now.
He is at least in the chat, I have seen.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I'm getting some instructions from my colleague Jan that I should try to type the word next when I want to move on. But the problem I'm going to have is I will have to look down and have to remember this, and my memory is never so good with this.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so you will hear me saying next from time to time, and it's not so professional, but we're going to work on this over time. And
but
that,
Alan, one thing, maybe some of the people here remember there was actually a dating series on MTV that was called Next. So maybe if you never heard that, I immediately got a flashback when I heard like Next.
Oh, I'm sorry. And with that, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring on Leonardo Venturini, who's with the Meteor Software team, as I mentioned before, so you know about him. But what you don't know is I'm also going to be bringing on Filipe. And Filipe Nevola is the former CEO and developer advocate for Meteor Software. So I want to welcome you both. Filipe is back because he spends a lot of time in the core bringing up issues, pointing out suggestions, and Quave, his company, often contributes back improvements that they find or they're able to implement back to the MeteorJS project. So Filipe, welcome back. Very much appreciate you being here. Okay. And so Leo, this is the big question. What's on the 3.1 roadmap? I'm going to just summarize really quickly what I have here. If we want to go to the next slide, Jan, we'll work off this, right? But, what we have on a high level from that Meteor doc that we showed you the link to earlier is the high level items are to improve TypeScript support for Meteor and packages, performance improvements for 3.0, which is to say some async optimizations, bringing community packages to the core. So I think, Kuster, you probably have some insight into which packages we're talking about here. MongoDB change stream support. By the way, there's an episode that I'm still putting some finishing touches to where I cover MongoDB change streams, but I think we'll find a lot of useful information from this episode also in this. Integrated support for Vite, which is a client bundler. Replace Babel with ESBuild, Rollup, SWC, or some other tool for server bundle. Support package.json, export fields, tree shaking, which for some reason, I remember Ben doing some work on tree shaking with Meteor many, many years ago, but I don't know if that ever, I know that he gave a talk about that, but I don't know if we ever implemented that. So I'm kind of curious to hear about this. Improve the release CI/CD speed and reliability to optimize build times, or actually the note here is that the optimized build times will actually help. Improve support for Windows 11, document better Windows with WSL, HTTP3 support, and then there is a section outside of this in the doc that talks about candidate items, which I'm not quite sure what that's about. So, and looking at this, I get the sense that there is a unifying theme on enhancing developer experience or improving platform performance. And so with that, I'm going to pass this on now to Leo to drive, because we just kind of want to understand more about how are these main items decided, makes the priorities, how do the feature requests and discussions get promoted to the roadmap? These candidate items on the roadmap, what are they, and will they be included in the next release? And what are the finished items that are also in a category down on the roadmap document? So, get to each of these things as you will, Leo, and Filipe, if you have some insight into some of this, you could chime in there also. So with that, we'll move on to the next slide, which, well, I'll let before we move on to the next slide, I'll let Leo chat a little bit about this, and then we'll start going into them individually.
Yeah. So basically, the roadmap is usually decided by what's already on the roadmap or was in the roadmap. We are all coming from somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of need the adjacent possibilities to kind of elevate what is already there, right? So we can't just say, if we're going to London, we can't say let's go to Japan or something. We need to go someplace that we are already kind of partway there, right? So yeah. And also there's discussions in the community, there's GitHub, there is direct discussions that I have with people, right, which I kind of schedule a call and just talk to them. And ultimately, we have a roadmap roundtable internally between every developer or employee of Meteor Software, where we kind of discuss which ones make sense and could mostly benefit the users at the end of the day. So that's basically how it's decided. It's not something that I just say that we will do. It's just something. It's there. What I can kind of come in and decide, prioritize and order things. For example, there are things that if it happened first, it's easier to do something else in the future. So, for example, about tree shaking and the exports fields, if we implement Vite and ESBuild beforehand, perhaps we get it for free. So there's things like that.
Very cool. I really appreciate the explanation. And with that, let's do this. Let's you're the guy here that's been working on this. So why don't we just start walking through these one by one, and
Sure.
you can kind of explain why it's important, what it solves, who's going to benefit from it, and what are you hearing in the discussions about this, or are there some challenges that need to be overcome?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll start with TypeScript then. So
Okay.
TypeScript.
Hang on 1 second. So just do next, because Jan, next slide, please.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go.
Okay, so a TypeScript can help Meteor in many ways. One is maintainability and help us maintain the code itself. The code that we have there in very important areas, mainly like real time and DDP, the tool itself could benefit from a better structure, so we can maintain and we can reduce the barrier of entry for other developers to contribute to the core, and ensure that the changes don't have obscure impacts to the code. They have more quality and less risk, right? And other way that TypeScript can help us is right now we have these types that are separate from the code. We need to have this types / Meteor, and sometimes the types can easily get out of sync, and it's more work to maintain. And if it's loud in just one code base in one place, it will be completely sync, and the tool and the TypeScript language service can pick it up directly, and things like that. So it improves developer experience as well, and gets the code more documented. And that's more ergonomic and better for the Meteor core as a product or end product.
Philippe, do you have some opinions on the TypeScript stuff?
No, I don't have any. Actually, I have, but I will keep for myself. No, but Leo and I, we worked together for many years, so we have discussions about TypeScript many times, right, Leo? So it's not a new discussion, but I don't think it's worth to discuss here. The only part that I would like to highlight is that usually it's helpful in a project that is huge, or a library that others need to alter, or a library that others need to use. It's helpful to have definitions. I don't agree that TypeScript is the best way to achieve that, but that's another discussion that is not important here. The important here is to achieve the goal of making easier to use and to modify the code. And if Meteor is going this direction, we can support that as well. And you can also help to do this in the new change that we sent as Quave for the core in the next days and years.
Sounds great. So go ahead, Jan, you were about to say something?
So my question is, will you prioritize? So will you rather prioritize the core code, the build tool code, or the core packages code for becoming TypeScriptified?
This is a funny thing, because ideally we wouldn't kind of actively refactor code, but I discovered that refactoring some of the code is a great way to learn about the code and make it better. I understood it better, and it made it easier for others to understand as well by refactoring code. So I did that with real-time code, and I could find some great improvements there. So we can start with the most important aspects of the framework, and then expand outwards, and focus our efforts so we get some tangible benefits right away, instead of spreading ourselves very thin.
Okay. So Leo, what I'm going to suggest to you is, when you're done with each of those items, and you want to move on to the next, just say the word next, and it's going to trigger Jan, and Jan is going to have these ideas of some dating program on MTV, and then he'll move you on to the next one. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Next.
Go ahead.
Okay. So where are you guys?
Oh, okay. I think they hide themselves. Yeah.
We're just, because you guys are talking about the roadmap. So.
No, but it should be here. It should be here.
Yeah, it's just conversation. Yeah.
Fine.
Okay. So after we released Meteor 3, some of our clients, big clients that believed in Meteor 3 and were not able to put their apps in production because of performance issues in the real-time system. So it's like our priority to make sure those users are also can put their apps in production with it. So this is like very important. And also like get it more performant than Meteor 2 was, because like there is this theme in the community that Meteor is not scalable beyond a certain point and things like that. So ideally we can create some better architecture as well out of this work, but it's not as urgent as getting some of our users and customers unblocked as well. And we have some very good potential improvements that go beyond Meteor 2 was, and I believe we can still go beyond. But there are things after we move away from fibers and refactoring to a single weight, some things that were parallel became series, and they kind of created bottlenecks and things like that. And also we have this big concern with async local storage that adds overhead, and the overhead is there, and we need to find better ways to compensate for that. And also we found out that compression in the DDP messages is also a huge factor for performance, both in CPU and in memory. So the compression effectively doubles both CPU and memory for your application, and we also optimize that. So we have like this PR almost ready. It has some big improvements there. Our test benchmarks are on par with Meteor 2 and beyond, but we need to validate more to effectively merge it into the core, and if the changes don't cause any issues. And that's pretty much it. Next.
Leo, but just one question, because I think did you said that like Meteor doesn't scale, or did I misunderstand you? Like you said
Meteor, the real-time aspect after a certain level becomes very problematic to scale, and the DDP flooding phenomenon becomes very frequent, and that's something that you can find on lots of discussions on the forums and other places. And perhaps sometimes it's the users that are kind of creating the publications in a certain way that could be better optimized, but also there are limitations in the core that we can perhaps help mitigate this.
Yeah, like I don't agree with this statement, and we have done ourselves like many times. Like today, I think we are basically the company where companies with performance issues, they reach us. So it's very common for Quave to be like requested to helping performance issues in large organizations that use Meteor. So we have helped companies worldwide scaling Meteors, and I didn't find so far any case that we didn't solve. And of course, there are many cases where the company is doing something wrong, and then there is an education process that needs to happen to be able to analyze what's going on there, and also to learn and to change. In some cases, the change is a little bit of a pain, so it's not so easy to migrate depending on how the code is organized. But so far, we never had to recommend a client, for example, to migrate off of Meteor because of scale. So we have 0 case of that. So I think it's really important, like that was one of the ideas that I had when I was part of the core team, but I never had the time to do it, to create a guide specifically about performance. And I know like maybe Meteor core team is not dealing with client code all the time because they are working the core. So that's a very common problem, right? We build the tool, but you don't use the tool. So it's hard for you to know where are the bottlenecks and where the performance issues start to happen. But in general, like we have very good solutions right now. And the problem is that they are not part of the core. So we have spread solutions. So some clients, they have proprietary solutions. Some clients, they have different connectors. But we have like huge applications using Meteor with multiple thousands and millions of users. So like it's possible to scale Meteor, but like, of course, any framework, if you don't know how to do it, you're going to find limitations very easily. But any framework can do that. And Meteor especially, you need to be aware that when you decide to use a real-time library with a stateful server, it's a trade-off. So we are not going to win. Like you're going to lose. What are you going to lose? You need to have more memory to keep state in the server. You need to have more CPU if you want to send just a small piece of data, because you want to have a difference calculated by merge box. So it's a clear trade-off. that people can be educated and can be aware and can understand. And in some cases, they can decide, okay, so now that I understand everything that's going on, maybe in this case, I'm going to use a GraphQL using DDP. Like I think everyone knows here, like you can use DDP with GraphQL, like you have big projects using this. You can also use with methods, and you can also use, of course, with publications. So you need to be able to decide these trade-offs to be able to get the better of any framework, including Meteor.
I mean, I just want to add here, because I totally agree with basically both of you, because this is the typical it depends thing. On the one hand, we have, of course, reproducible performance issues. On the other hand, as Filipe said, it's also part depending on your architecture and what you want to achieve, and that you choose the right thing. And I think, just as a takeaway also from my end, that we as community, also in terms of documentation and in terms of what we do in this stream and with tutorials, is also provide a little bit guidance, like when should you use PubSub, in which heavily aligns, when a GraphQL setup might be good for you, when you should stick to methods or even to plain HTTP requests and responses. And then the combination of everything should make the greatest possible solution for you.
Yeah, this is kind of my personal view that I'll say now. Like, I believe that real time is like the killer feature in Meteor, and the more that we kind of make it more performant and easy to use, the better. Of course, we can kind of overdo it and kind of sacrifice other things, but that's something that should be like people should think as less as possible, and if you can do that, great. And I do believe that architecture improvements there. And of course, much of this is dictated by user-land code and how they're using. If they have like this big publication, heavily using publish and subscribe instead of methods and things like that. And there's also the aspect of user experience. Depending on the use case, having a real time is better for user experience, and perhaps that's what the users expect from them, and it's not something that they can kind of just throw away. So yeah, it's like a complex subject.
Yeah, and I'm not like diminishing this item. Like this item is really important. We always want to optimize. For example, Nacho, he posted that Nacho is one of the core members. We also worked together in the past. So Nacho posted the results of a test, but for example, in our servers, I was not able to reproduce. Like I was able to run what Nacho did in a small container. So like there are server infrastructure, there are many components when you talk about performance. So it's a very hard topic to discuss in a quick meeting with a lot of other topics. But maybe we should have a second round. Okay, now let's dive deep in even how Nacho created this test, how I made my tests, like how can you compare and what you can learn from this, because otherwise you're going to just talk about performance. So it's an important issue, but I believe and I can prove that Meteor scales. But of course you need to know, but that's the case for all the frameworks. So if you use something correctly, of course it's not going to scale, and that's just life, right? You need to understand the framework to scale.
So Filipe, I think that's a really good suggestion that we take this topic and do a performance, how do you set up performance testing or performance evaluation as a separate episode, and have you come back, and maybe Leo also to come back and spend a little more time with it. I think we have spent a lot of time for the many items that we have here, and I think we should probably move on unless there's something else critical.
Yeah, I just want to
go ahead.
I just want to mention our plan for dealing with the performance issues that we identified is that first we will like take care of the core aspect of the performance, and also their package from the community like Red's uplog and publish composite that needs to be evaluated as well. So we are dividing and conquering to make sure it's the same level that Meteor 2 was in the past. So yeah.
Okay. So when jumping into the next item, please don't be confused. Let me quickly close and reopen this, because as you can see now, it's now called Meteor MeteorJS 3.x roadmap, because we wrote 3.1 roadmap. Of course, 3.1 is released, and Fred already commented on that he was a little bit confused if this is 3.1, but we're actually talking about the future here. So this is like what's coming up in the following releases. So this is 3.x.
I'm gonna have to redo that thumbnail.
No problem.
I'm gonna have to redo that thumbnail. All right, guys. So let's move on to the next thing. What do we have here?
So we are. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to introduce bringing community packages to the core.
Yeah. So let's swing this back to Leo. And Leo, go ahead.
So this tied back to the workgroups initiative that the community is pursuing, and it started with the roles package. Now the roles, the Alanin roles, is now part of the core officially, and there are many other packages out there that are kind of the de facto standard in the ecosystem, and we are evaluating the possibility of bringing them to the core. And there is also another aspect to it, is that we don't want to go too fast on this, since we don't want to manage all of it ourselves. So it's like we need to leverage our time as well as possible. So we need to be kind of careful with what we include into the core. Totally. But in essence, like Redis uplog is also a candidate for being brought to the core and made as just like a built-in strategy that we can use.
And I mean, there was already that effort to bring one package. The first package is the roles package with release 3.1 being added to the core. And there's one thing to remember here. The roles package is so common purpose that it was very easy, or let's say it was rather a low-hanging fruit, because it was very abstracted. It has good abstractions. It was very common purpose. It was not specific to any use case, and that's a good candidate for being pushed into the core, right? And when looking at other packages, for example, collection 2, bringing schema validation to your Mongo collections, this is a very common purpose thing, but collection 2 in its current state is very dependent on simple schema, for example. So this is maybe not a very common case. So and then you have to evaluate, okay, do we have to rewrite this? Does it even make sense to use the package? Does it make sense to rewrite the Mongo on the core package level, and so on? And so just for the viewers to get a little bit more insight how these decisions are made, that it's maybe not very straightforward, like, okay, we picked this package and this becomes now core, but there are actually more constraints to it if this package can become core.
So let me just ask you one other thing. If we are bringing, or we're considering bringing things like Redis uplog to the core, does this mean that there would be native support for Redis available in Galaxy at some point? Is that the idea?
Yeah, I can't say for sure, but Galaxy seems to be going in that direction. Now there will be like Node apps supported in Galaxy. Perhaps Fred could talk more about this in some episode, or even Enrique. But yeah, like we have MongoDB now and also Node.js applications. Who knows, Redis or something else, because like Redis is closed source now. Something about that happened. So,
yeah, now they have Valkey is their open source, or the open source alternative to Redis. Yeah, in terms of hosted solutions.
So there's one question would be if I don't know if things like Memcached are another alternatives to that, and then again if the what's the name? The process of integrating that would rather be, again, making as a community package. So that's always the advantage and disadvantage. When it comes core, it is, of course, also slower, but longer supported. And if you want to adapt new things, usually the community will create some packages.
Yeah, like this is like a good point. If we kind of evaluate that there is a better alternative to Redis, that's perhaps faster, because like this is like a pub sub system that runs as a backend instead of the uplog. So it could be replaced by something else if there is a better alternative.
I would like to make just a note about community packages. Like because I think here community packages may be literally meaning the community packages from the community package organization, right? I'm not sure what means community here, but it means just like packs that are not part of the core. Like, I don't think we need to bring to the core packs that are well maintained and they have like good answers, good response time. For example, Quave ourselves, I think we have more than 20 packages. And usually we reply really fast, especially if you agree with the suggestion. It's like in less than 1 or 2 weeks, it's going to be released. So recently we released a bunch of packages already 100% compatible with Meteor 3, include collections. Quave collections is a different take on how to use collections, especially in the creation step. But anyway, like these packages, they are getting new updates like every month because we are using them in new projects, active projects. So just this week, we are starting a very large project that have the potential to be one of the largest in the Meteor community. So like these new projects, they are also bringing new additions to these packages. So if you never check our package, you should check because, of course, they are free. Like there is no way to charge for Meteor packages, by the way. So that's a business idea. but they are free, so you can use like the cron jobs and other packs. They have different features because we start to add new and new features, and that's happening like every month. And probably next month we're going to add much more because we have new needs with this new huge web that we are creating. So like I think that decision should be okay. The quality is good, the speed of like the improvement is good. Okay, let's keep this package aside because otherwise we are going to have everything in the core. And like the core team is not like 100 people to merge PRs all the time. So it's going to be a bottleneck. So I think you need to be a little bit careful about that. And of course, when the core team decides that it's really important for them, they will need to provide speed as well. Otherwise, they are going to have even more people asking for change. And that's going to be an issue and not a solution.
It's I don't think we have good answers for all of this right now. As a matter of fact, I think there is some overlap between the work that Quave is doing on packages that are being offered out, like the collections packages and so on, and what the community team is working on also. And so, there are some collisions that are happening, and it can create some frustrations. I don't know if Jan, you want to bring this up, and maybe there needs to be some way of coordinating so that we're not we're not working at odds with each other with competing packages of the same function,
I mean,
right?
this might be a good episode I could do together with the storyteller, who is unfortunately not here today, but should be back next week. And regarding next, should I move on to the next point in the slides, or is there anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, we can move on to the next one.
MongoDB's change streams support. Alan, where's the change stream episode?
The change stream episode is on the operating table. It's trying to sew it up and get it out sometime soon. So it's going to give a lot of background behind MongoDB itself, and then of course the reasons behind change streams. So, but I think we can have a conversation here about what this is, and I'm going to turn this over to Leonardo and put it in his. Go ahead.
Yeah. So right now, the default real-time logic of Meteor uses the oplog as the change propagation mechanism, right? Mm-hmm. And that's not the official way of doing it. It's like it's there, it's accessible, but it's meant to be something internal that MongoDB uses for its own purposes, right? So there are some issues with that. Is that its API can change, and it does change, and it causes some work that we need to do to kind of make it compatible again, and also that it's kind of not kind of suited to the thing that we are doing, right? So we are using this way, but it's not supposed to be used this way. So perhaps change streams can even offer better performance and things like that. So there is possible gains there. It's not like we are kind of replacing something. We can kind of get optimizations as well. And of course, there's many architectural considerations should be done. This is like more like medium-term project, so it's not very well discussed yet, but it's something that we want to do and pursue as soon as we get a handle on the things that we are doing right now, which is the main things are like making sure Meteor 3 is stable and the performance issues are fully resolved. So yeah.
And there are many companies already using change strings in production, but I'm not sure like how willing they are to open source their solution. But we have already solution like Leo and I, we are part of the company in the past that used change string partially to do real-time data with Meteor, and you have companies with even more now because that was like 5 years ago, 4 years ago. So like there are many solutions out there. So if one of these companies is watching this, maybe it could be nice to open a discussion to see if you want to like, okay, I want to expose my solution as an open source solution, but otherwise the Meteor core team, we need to start from scratch. So that's
there's just to point out like this, there's multiple approaches that we can follow here. Like you can have a service that kind of routes all the changes and things like that. We kind of want to be as smooth as possible for the users, so probably add just a separate strategy to the Mongo package, which is different from some companies that I worked for. So yeah, and there's also the DDP router project and things like that. So it's going to be the best way for the end user as possible.
Yeah, I will say, by the way, that one of the things that upload tailing really had a problem dealing with was properly finding documents. I forget what the error was, but it was an error where either documents would disappear or computations would be missed when dealing with sharded clusters. And so in MongoDB, you have replica sets. Everybody thinks about replica sets. They often think that replica is how you actually scale out an application. Replicas are not meant for scaling applications. They're meant for creating availability. In case one of the nodes goes down, you have another node that has the same data that you can connect back to. But when you're talking about scaling large applications, they usually talk about sharding the clusters so that instead of having lots of hits going to a single node that gets overwhelmed and then slows down, you would route those requests to subset nodes that only do a portion of the query, and your query then gets matched to a particular node that gives you back this information. It would be better if I had actually a graphic here for that. I apologize because I didn't expect that we'd have this conversation. But the thing was, for a very long time, and Filipe, I'm going to ask you to jump in on this because you have a lot of implementation experiences. Most of the deployments that I know about with MongoDB don't use sharded clusters for reactive content, and partly because of this issue. We are upload tailing, but the thing is like to tail and then merge and rectify issues with where data is on each shard, especially when shards rebalance and move data across each other to make sure there are no hotspots, becomes a very, very complex issue in terms of being able to know clearly like where data is. My understanding is that change streams actually helps resolve this, because instead of looking at the uplogs on each one of these shards, you just go to the change tree API and it resolves it for you in the background. So Filipe, do you have experience with using shards with Meteor clusters, or?
No, usually but what you said, I agree with what you said in the beginning.
Yep.
But not 100%, because also the replica sets can be used to help in the scaling, because you can use the read preference. So you can use like the different nodes that are basically just a replica to also provide data for read. So in many applications, you have a lot of volumes for the read. So if you have more replicas, you have more read power. So that helps you to balance the cluster. But usually sharding is in the case that sharding was a good solution. Instead of sharding, I was just using different clusters, and then I could have different uplogs. So that's a way to work around with shardings. But of course, it's not a dynamic sharding. For example, MongoDB, because like MongoDB is also our client, but MongoDB, they have different clusters. So it's like a sharding, but they do in a different way because they segment the database. So if they want to split the database into different independent databases, they have different uplogs, so uplog is not going to be an issue. But as Leo said, like the best solution, if you are using like Redzoplog, in my opinion, and you already have this available as a package that was Hadek who created, you can run as an external service. So you're not going to overload your Node.js server. I think he wrote in Rust or Go, and then you have just this server, and I already have a benchmark with a client, like we tried 3 different approaches, and this approach is the best one. The problem is that you have one more component to monitor, to spend resource, but it's a great solution because your MongoDB, your Meteor server is going to be really light, because the management of this uplog tailing or change string tailing is going to be in an external service. So it's a good approach.
Yeah, MongoDB does suggest that you can use, like where you have heavy writes, you can use a secondary or tertiary to use as a read-only, and then hit those with reads. So depending on what your usage patterns are, they have that. But they're very clear, by the way, that replica sets are really not a scaling solution. It's meant as an availability solution. So I understand that some people use it this way, but that's not how the architecture is meant. So anyway, we can move on. Unless there's something else about change streams you want to cover here.
No, I think we should very quickly think about that there might be an episode 2 of this, actually. Philipe proposed, because I think, Philipe, I don't know, but you have time constraints, if I get that correct. And
yeah, and I know I am the problem, right? Every time that I come here, the episode's long, but in my defense, I also think the episodes, they get more views. And I have a theory that's just like people want to learn more. And like, I think this kind of discussions, because Aline sometimes say to me like, Philippe, don't go that deep. But I think people like that. So I know the goal is to share the news, but like it's hard to explain the roadmap of a very complex framework with like almost 15 years already. So it's hard to like, we need to go step by step and we need to explain. Otherwise people know, what is change strings? Like, people don't know what is change strings.
Agreed. Yeah, but then let's maybe we just move on and see how far we can get, and then decide on a second episode. And maybe there's also what the people want to see, and maybe guys in the chat, if there is one of the topics here in the list you see that is left that interests you the most, then leave a comment while we continue with the next item, so we can keep focusing on that. What's interesting for you right now?
Yeah, I can, if you prefer, I can wrap up the remaining ones, because they are like more into the future, and I can kind of just bundle them together. So here, like we have HTTP 3 support, which is like experimental, and in Node.js, but it's not fully supported, so we can just write it off. We have like the export field, and also tree shaking, which is if we implement Vite or ES build, it will be also gained for free potentially. And about improving the release CI and CD speed and reliability is that releases take a long time. Basically, it takes many hours to publish. And there are also internal discussions about having nightly versions of Meteor and things like that that could improve the experience for the community. And also support for Windows. Like today, it's very problematic. Then we have many issues about Windows. There is discussions about even kind of having WSL as the official way and things like that, and potentially kind of dropping Windows itself, but having WSL in place there as well. So that's pretty much it. These are like more into the future, and the discussions are still going on about those. So yeah, and about Vite, for example, which is like the more like in the intermediate position, there is like it's going to be very helpful for integrating Meteor with existing Node.js or JavaScript ecosystem, because we are like very closed off right now, and that potentially we would need like perhaps drop atmosphere and package system and fully integrate with NPM, which is the de facto standard for JavaScript runtimes. And we kind of like our theme right now is like Renaissance, rebirth. So in order for a rebirth to occur, you have to drop certain things. So we are also deciding what these things are. And if the community has any ideas, want to chime in on this, just let us know. Perhaps there are better alternatives that already exist out there for things that we are already building.
But Leo, isn't Atmosphere there the to handle Meteor packages, because Meteor packages also include things that are not useful at all in the npm ecosystem?
Yeah, that's more like because of the build system. It has ISO packed, so it's different. You can't kind of integrate that easily into Vite, for example. You have to add another layer of compatibility, perhaps. So it's not well discussed yet, well decided. So that's a possibility that we perhaps drop an Atmosphere, creating a compatibility layer for existing packages. Of course, not removing the service, just for future versions of Meteor, and move away from the packages and instead use the repository that already exists, which is npm. We can get other improvements as well. We can get like improved TypeScript integration without having to reinvent the wheel. We can get faster speed of releases, and because we don't need to publish packages anymore. Just publishing the packages in the core take hours. So there are many potential improvements there. So if anyone has any concerns about this, just let me know.
Okay, we're getting some comments here.
I think one good way to address that would be a Vite plugin. So you could keep the packages as they are, and then the Meteor tooling could be able to build a system using the current build plugin that we have, plus also invoking the Vite plugin. So I think that's a change that's more realistic, because if you just start from scratch, that's basically saying, okay, Meteor is done. You need to start from scratch your app, and who's going to start from scratch and choose the Meteor again, after the decision of start from scratch? It's kind of counterintuitive. So I think you should create a way that you can move forward, but it's 100% compatible, or 90% compatible, or need to just change a few settings. Otherwise, you're going to lose all the community, and basically the community is what makes Meteor alive.
Yeah, the idea is not to break anything. The idea is to have it fully compatible. So the how is still to be decided, right? So it's just one idea, one potential candidate that we have, and we are discussing, and I'm putting it here to exactly for that, to get feedback from you guys, what you guys think about that as well. But the sense that I have as a developer as well is that the package system kind of just is reinventing the wheel, that we already have something for that. And you can see the community for Bun, even Dino still uses npm, because they kind of need the access to ecosystem, which is millions and millions of packages. And yeah.
But I think it's weird to say we are reinventing the wheel, because we were before the wheel, right? So Meteor was ahead of time. It was not. Yeah. Now it's behind because it's not the de facto, but we didn't reinvent. We were just there before.
I know.
So Meteor was. It's like Japan. People say the economy of Japan, they evolved too fast, and now they are too fast, but they are in the past because they already had fax machines and so on. So Meteor was like that. Meteor was too fast, and then some directions were correct. So I think it's a good way to compare the Meteor situation.
Yeah.
Again, another topic I think we can spend a lot of time on. So these types of deep topics, Filipe, we had conceived of as being deep dives, where we could get really involved in it. It's just we have not we did I think a couple of them at the very beginning of the podcast about a year ago. Haven't really followed up with too many since. So I think, Jan, we can move to the end of this list if you want to. And I think you've covered pretty much everything here.
Tree shaking. Did you cover tree shaking?
Yeah, he mentioned the tree shaking.
Oh, yeah, I was trying to skip.
Yeah. Just giving a hint.
Yeah, tree shaking can be easily achievable if we have Vite or ESP in place. So,
and it would be awesome. I just want to throw in here, I always have the thing or a criticism I see around the web, for example, about Next.js. So, but it's a similar problem with Meteor. So there's lots of criticism about Next.js apps that they bring a bundle size of Doom to the user. And I mean, you can do the same if you're not careful. You can do the same with Meteor as well. If you throw in packages like wild, and you don't, and then you stop node things on the client as well. So your client bundle just grows heavily, and over like Lighthouse reports like 90% you don't even use. So with tree shaking, that you could get rid of that problem easily.
Yeah, but tree shaking in the build tool of Meteor, even without Vite or whatever, it was really close. Like, I don't know if you remember, but if you look to the PR that Renault was working on, Renault was like just 2 bugs away. But the problem is that at the time we had a lot of other priorities, and then we had to switch our focus as a small and lean company that we were at the time. So, but it was really, really close. Of course, now because of Meteor 3, probably a lot of code needs to be also updated. But maybe this work could be resumed faster than you start from scratch with Vite. I'm not sure. I didn't do this analysis, but I think it's something that you should consider. And especially now that you have AI, maybe it's not that hard to rewrite Rena's code in the async mode because the AI knows what should be translated. So I think it's something that you should discuss tree shake and Vite together, because maybe tree shake is still easier to be done. But, and to be 100% honest, I don't think tree shaking is a very big deal for Meteor, because if you can be very selective and you can use dynamic imports, Meteor dynamic imports are more powerful than any other framework. So if you can use this correctly, your bundle is going to be basically always the same.
Yep.
So
yeah,
it's
what I'm doing. Yeah. True. Okay. I think there is a topic left that Alim wanted to cover. So before we jump into that, maybe we quickly wrap up this in like a minute or two, just because we already surpassed the 1 hour timeline at the time marker. And what?
Yeah, but I think this is, I mean, it's 1 hour, but it's good content, right? So it's,
yes, of course.
So I think we shouldn't just be arbitrary about the time, other than for our guests, if they have to leave, then we need to respect that as much as possible. But let me just add in a couple of things here. One is so as far as the work that has been like presented here on these slides, these items are presented here. Leo, how much work needs to be done to get started on this, or are some of these things already in progress?
Some of these things are already in progress. For example, TypeScript is like something more abstract that kind of touches everything else. Yeah. Ideally, new things should be made in TypeScript instead of plain JavaScript. And others, like performance improvements, are already underway. And we've been researching it for at least 2 or 3 months, right? From it's kind of a lot of work going to there and juggling it with the stability issues that we have to fix, and also modernization of the infrastructure. We have Node, MongoDB, and Express completely up to date now. So yeah, so there's like things that are short term and they are already like being worked on, and there are long term things that are kind of more far away into the horizon, or like more blurry, that we need to define.
So when you say that things like MongoDB are already there, are you saying that like the MongoDB driver is now MongoDB 8 compatible, and it's
it already was like
and it can use all the new features in MongoDB 8?
Yeah, with exception of some of the log changes when you use transactions. That's still something that we need to look into the future. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And is there so what I also want to understand is, in addition to the work that you guys do on the code itself to make these things possible, there's also attendant materials that need to happen, like code example resources, tutorials, documentation updates. How are those happening? And are they going to happen after the fact, or are they happening concurrently? And then of course, is there help that members from the community can bring to this if
Yeah.
that's what they're looking for?
Yeah, we are kind of limited right now. Like we have like 3 people on the team, and 2 of them are part-time. So we kind of need to focus really hard on certain things, and it's a little bit difficult to kind of switch context and kind of focus on the writing tutorials and things like that, because like a different mindset, at least for me, right? So we would really appreciate if anyone would like to contribute there. We also have like Gabs, which is like the lead advocate for Meteor right now, and is producing amazing content, interviews, and everything. So that's also amazing for us. And of course, one thing that bothers me is like there's many outdated videos out there about Meteor 2 that could be updated, and that depends largely in the community as well.
Can I add something here, Leonardo? And that definitely builds on top what you just said, and also should be considered for the roadmap and this whole developer experience theme. As a developer who wants to contribute to Meteor, I would like to see an architecture overview, very high level, very entry pointy high level, to see what are the parts actually of Meteor and what's their role. Doesn't need to be very deep, but that's the thing that I'm missing, and I'm not missing it only on Meteor. I'm missing this on many of the bigger frameworks. Simply, I know it's just hard to create such an overview, but that's the key point for many people to understand where I'm actually can start to work at. Because if you don't have that entry point, it's already such a big barrier that especially not so much experienced developers who are also maybe not that patient or don't have that much time, it's already a blocker. So that's just my 2 cents on that topic. And I tried to do that for Blaze, and I can assure you it's really hard actually to do it. And but if anyone's out there who's into architecture and into doing interesting graphics and designing things, making things understandable, that would be the #1 pull request I would vote up 5,000 times.
Yes, some time ago there was a suggestion in the Discord community about having diagrams and things like that. I'm all for that too. That would be amazing. Yeah.
All right, and Jan is okay. Let's see. We've got a couple of things here. How can the community contribute? We've talked about that a little bit, right? I think you had here when we might see. Oh, I had on the timeline. When might we see an alpha from this? Or, is there like Q1 2025 or Q2 that we'd be looking to see something from this list come out?
Yeah, the plan right now is to have 3.1.1 for some stability fixes for the current release, and also to include the performance, many of the performance improvements that we are making. And we will go to 3.2, which will include change streams. So that's in the we have like this month, and the other month we'll have 3.2. Or at the worst case scenario, it would be like February. We can't give it like exact dates, but that's like the time frame that we have.
Yeah,
Because,
that's why we said Q1, Q2, and so on, right? Because
yeah.
then it's like you're not committed to any specific, but you're like, here's the period that we're aiming for. So it's like a Q1. We probably are going to see something. We might get a Christmas present, but if we don't get a Christmas present, then it'll be Q1, right?
Yeah, there will probably be a Christmas present. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. And I think this is sort of like the wrap of it. So guys, this is the main list in the roadmap right now. That roadmap, I believe, the document is somewhat dynamic, right, Leo? In terms of what is actually there and what gets prioritized. And I think there is, if I understand it, there is discovery that happens. So as you look into each of these items, depending on the amount of work or whether or not it can be obviated by doing something else, and then you get that thing for free, those things are part of the discovery. It's like as they look at it, as they evaluate it, then they are able to figure out, oh, this is not a unique item. We can, it'll get resolved by doing something else, or we're going to have to do a lot of work. And by the way, this might be like 3 or 4 stages before we can actually fit there. And Filipe, yes, you had your hand up.
Before you leave, Filipe, can you give us the most 3 wanted items on this list from you?
From me, let me see. TypeScript. No, I'm just kidding. I don't use Windows as well, so okay, HTTP3 would be nice. MongoDB change strings would be nice, and I think more decisions around like the rules for packages to be adopted for the core or not, like in public, like, okay, these are the rules, so everybody knows, okay, this is, and that's it. Bye, guys. I really need to go.
Bye.
It's good having you, Filipe. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay.
What about you guys? What are your favorite 3 items on the list?
Gabriel has here TypeScript.
Yeah.
Preston says he has a cat but no pants. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, I think he wants to sell a car.
Yeah, I
That's
saw
what
that.
Gabs commented on.
We removed that because that's not what this is about. Let's see. Oh, hang on a second. Vite again. All right, so there are a few other people that are putting in Vite. Yeah. Because Paolo is also asking about Vite. Yeah, very cool. All right, folks, we're gonna move on here. Excuse me. And Jan, we did not. Patrick is asking for Vite also. Hang on.
Yeah.
And Fred is saying TypeScript plus Vite plus performance. So Fred is the only one who's given like 3 items altogether here. But yeah, there seems to be a big Vite patrol out there right now.
Yeah.
So Leo, you can stick around if you want to. We're gonna just finish up with a couple of things and close out the episode. So, excuse me, Jan. We had a very short week in terms of planning, and there is this question with regard to reactive data structures because last week you gave us a recording of a live coding that you did. So you were kind of controlling the situation, so to speak, on a reactive stack, right? And initially you had thought that you were going to be doing reactive queues, but you moved it to reactive stacks because that's sort of like the basic of our data structures, and then you're going to move on from there. So I don't think that you are going to be doing a reactive data structure episode this week, but you said that there's something, I think you teased earlier, that there's something coming. So tell us about this.
So our idea is currently to provide a new series on reactive data structures, and it just makes sense because they're the building blocks, at least on the client side, for your applications. I mean, Meteor does a lot to bring this into reality for you, but if things get more complex, it's great to know how to run your custom reactive data structures. And I don't want to tell you now which is the next one because we need to keep it a little bit secret again, but there will be a new video on another reactive data structure, and I also have to make sure that it's working and all that stuff, and then making a video out of it and then uploading the next tutorial on that within the next days. So that will be a separate video on this channel about our new reactive data structure series. And I think they are especially important because it's really fundamentals, but can be very powerful, and it's very narrow scoped. So it's not like these hour-long videos on tutorials building the next super application, but it's really like a very focused work, like 50 minutes, and then you're one step wiser about this, and it should help you in your next setup.
So what I didn't hear clearly, and maybe, you know, I'm just not paying attention well enough, is when do you think you're going to have that next episode?
So over the weekend would be perfect, but it could also be Monday or Tuesday. It depends a little bit on
Okay.
my private weekend.
So it's coming within the next 7 days, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I. So guys, look for that. It'll be coming soon, and if you are subscribed to the channel, you will get a notification when it actually pops up. All right.
Yep.
And so I don't know what the point is. That maybe it's the internal stuff here that's going on. I don't know. But Patrick said good point. I'm not sure what point he's talking about.
Maybe
But,
about the data structures.
Perhaps, yeah, perhaps. All right. So we have this last bit here
Yep.
that, excuse me, my throat is getting clogged up. So let me get back to the slides here, and let's move to the last slide. And one of the things I wanted to share is for those of you who have been doing updates from your 2 series applications to your 3 series applications, maybe running into some issues. We've had other developers in the past share their experience about their migrations from 2 to 3. And over here, we have user Vutelis, and this is a longtime user of MeteorJS who has been on the forums for a very, very long time, often shares his knowledge and helps out with people who have some trouble with their code and their issues. He has posted on the forums his own experience moving from Meteor 2/Vue 2 to Meteor 3/Vue 3. And I'm going to just, you know, I think it's worth reading if you have a Meteor 2 application that you want to, I'm sorry, a Vue 2 application that you want to move to Vue 3. But he has some basic takeaways that I think you can benefit from. His key takeaways on this are: start small, sort out the Vue.js dependencies, update MeteorJS and Vue.js at the same time. Don't expect corresponding. So he's saying don't do an update to 3 on Meteor and then move your Vue 2 application. It's going to be a problem, right? Or, you know, don't upgrade your 2 application to 3 and then move it over to Meteor 3. You're going to have a lot more complications than that, I think the suggestion is. So just move from Vue 2, 3 to Vue 2, Meteor 2. I'm tying my own tongue trying to say this, to Vue 3, Meteor 3. Okay. Don't expect corresponding Vue.js 3 packages to be available in the Meteor 3 ecosystem. So you may have to do some of your own work to make old packages work for you. Or you may have to do some other work because those packages just won't be available to you. And then copy over your code incrementally and upgrade it where it's needed. So take your code as it is from one version to the other, move it over, test it to see whether or not it runs, and then make your fixes as you go. So it's more of a crawl than it is a run on this. But those, I think, are the learned lessons that he is sharing in this article. So read the article because it goes into much better detail. It does a better job of explaining than I just did in this very high-level review of this article. And Vutelis, thank you again for always putting useful and helpful information out that others can benefit from. Truly are one of the best people in the community. With that, I'd like to just remind people that if you want to, and I don't have a slide for this, so we can just go off slides now. But if you want to, I think last week's episode on signals has performed very well. If you haven't seen it, go take a look. It's still running out there. There's another episode we did on whether or not there's a future to open source software. That one is, you know, running gangbusters. And again, if you haven't gotten a chance to watch it and comment on it, we would love to get your feedback. Go take a look at it and give us some information there. And coming up next week, we're covering multilingual support in MeteorJS applications. And our friend Storyteller will be back because this is his baby, and he's gonna take this to the moon. There are a couple of things I want to mention also. Is you will notice that there'll be a rotation of the hosts going forward. Often it's just going to be 2 hosts on at the time, and once in a while we'll have all 3. We're doing that so that we could try to have deeper preparation on the content that we're putting together, and hopefully you'll see that and be able to let us know that we're doing the right thing by doing so. So again, give some comments back on how we're doing with the show, what you'd like us to cover. But for now, this is what we've got. And guys, unless there's something else you want to add, I'm going to say have a great weekend. All right. Ciao. We'll see you next week.
See you next time.
Trying to do the YouTube